Who said
I wasn't in charge. If I'd been given responsibility for making Brexit happen, it would have been very different.
But that's an easy get-out. That's a bit like where you are now in Reform, where you're saying, I'm not in charge.
In 2019, right, in the general election, I stood aside, with 300 seats, to give Boris Johnson a...
When it comes to politics, the stakes are always high, but fewer moments truly define how high the stakes are than a confrontation between a political figure and a TV host. Nigel Farage, the name synonymous with bold political stances and unapologetic rhetoric, has once again captured the public's attention. This time, it wasn't on the campaign trail or at a political rally. It was during a live television interview. The air was thick with anticipation as Farage, known for his unflinching views, faced off against seasoned journalists, each moment intensifying as the conversation veered toward familiar yet volatile topics.
Duty bound to say that is one poll, and that as it stands, one poll, but it is...
It's still pretty remarkable.
Yeah, but it is one poll. Can you take us through that next step then? So you are understandably looking at that poll and seeing it as a moment, a clear moment in the election campaign. What do you think that translates to in terms of your showing, in terms of MPs come the day? Because as you well know, there is a big difference between claiming yourself as the opposition to Labour right now and actually becoming...
Hey, quick favour before we move on. If you find this political content interesting, go ahead and like the video and subscribe to the channel. Most of you watch without subscribing and it's free. In today's video, we are going to dive into one of the most exciting and intriguing face-offs between TV host and Reformers UK leader Nigel Farage. Ensure you watch this video till the end to get the full details.
That money goes into the system, it goes into banks, the banks lodge it with the Bank of England, the Bank of England pay them interest on it. It's a racket. It's a racket, and an increasing number.
But this wasn't about winning an argument on air. This moment symbolised something far greater. It represented a widening chasm between the narratives of mainstream media and the emerging voices that sought to challenge them.
So, as you know, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves, has been off to China. Now, to be fair, this was not a last-minute panic trip. It was booked some time ago. Although I have little doubt she would have urged the Chinese, please, please, please buy government bonds, because our 10 and 30-year yields, that mean interest rates, have been going up and up and up over the course of the last few weeks. That at the same time, as inflation is going up, as growth is at best flatlining, and the pound is starting to tumble on the exchanges. I have to say, I thought her speech today, I'm not even going to show you any of it, frankly was a nothingness. I believe she's completely and utterly out of her depth. And when she says that growth is the #1 mission of this government, well, you know what? Increasing the size of the public sector, whilst at the same time doing things that reduce the size of the private sector, is not, in my opinion, a recipe for growth. She looks tired. Well, that's fair enough. It's not easy being a cabinet.
Nigel Farage, renowned for his blunt and often polarising views, didn't merely triumph in a debate. He laid bare the vulnerabilities of media gatekeeping and shed light on the deep frustration many citizens harboured toward traditional media outlets. This live showdown was more than just entertaining for viewers. It defined a moment in British politics, one that unveiled a shifting power dynamic between the press and the populist leader gaining traction.
Looking this time at many, many more votes than 4 million, we're hoping to get through the electoral threshold. Whatever we do, we may not get the number of seats we deserve, but are we going to win seats in Parliament? Yes. How many? There's 3 weeks to go. We've got momentum behind us.
From the moment Nigel Farage entered the BBC studio, the atmosphere thickened with tension. The presenters, far from aiming for a balanced discussion, seemed to have a singular objective to challenge, discredit, and ensnare him in statements that could easily be distorted against him. But Farage, the seasoned politician, was prepared. Years of experience in navigating hostile media were evident as he faced the barrage of provocative questions with unshakable composure. Each query designed to provoke him was met head-on, as Farage maintained his. He refused to be cornered. Every attempt to trip him up was countered with clear, precise responses. Farage avoided vague rhetoric or political jargon, opting instead for straightforward answers supported by facts and statistics. His approach highlighted the flaws in the host's arguments, turning the tables with ease. It was a textbook display of media mastery. As the host grew more aggressive, Farage remained composed, further amplifying the contrast and leaving the presenters looking increasingly desperate and unprofessional. Every question intended to trip him up was met with clarity and precision. There were no vague statements or carefully crafted political doublespeak. Farage delivered direct answers and reported facts and statistics exposing the weakness in the host's arguments. It was a masterclass in media handling. The harder the host pushed, the calmer Farage became, making the presenter look increasingly desperate and unprofessional.
Of 30 or 40,000 a year.
One of the initial heated discussions centred on the UK's welfare system. Farage pointed out a pressing concern: the rising number of young people dependent on welfare benefits. He argued that the current system discourages work by creating a welfare trap. Farage explained that for many, returning to work, particularly working long hours exceeding 60 per week, results in such a heavy tax burden. One of the first contentious topics to arise was the state of the UK's welfare system. Farage highlighted a growing concern. According to the MP, many young people find themselves trapped in a welfare cycle. He argued that current policies, though well-intentioned, often do more harm than good. His argument points to the fact that most working people feel that working more than 60 hours a week leads to a tax burden so severe that in some cases it becomes financially wiser to remain on benefits. As the debate continued, Farage pointed out that the welfare issue costs the government over £1 billion every year. His proposed solution was to raise the tax threshold, enabling people to retain more of their earnings and incentivizing them to return to work. When the host, clearly struggling to refute his argument, questioned the practicality of his economic plan, Farage remained composed. His solution? Raising the tax threshold to make work more rewarding. This suggestion might seem simple, but it addresses the frustrations many people feel that the system doesn't support those trying to enhance their lives. The host, clearly struggling with this perspective, attempted to challenge the feasibility of Farage's economic proposal. Undeterred, Farage responded with assurance, outlining how substantial savings could be achieved by addressing inefficiencies within government spending. He was particular about the financial dealings involving the Bank of England and commercial banks, which he described as a financial racket. When questioned about how he would fund his proposed economic reforms, he highlighted the government's reckless money creation during the pandemic, a move that benefited banks while leaving ordinary citizens to bear the brunt of the financial strain.
£2 million. We want to lift the VAT threshold to help small businesses. I promise you, what's coming on Monday is very, very different.
Throughout the interview, it was clear that the host was far from neutral. The questions, carefully crafted, seemed designed to portray Nigel Farage as reckless or uninformed. Yet, in a remarkable display of poise and insight, Farage skillfully turned the tables. When pressed about the source of his funding for the proposed economic reforms, he did not falter. Instead, he highlighted the government's reckless money creation during the pandemic. A policy that allowed banks to profit while ordinary citizens were left to bear the brunt of the crisis. Farage's response left the host momentarily at a loss, underscoring his adeptness in navigating the difficult questions with ease.
Black is British
contributed to this economy. Surely he'll understand that.
Few politicians address immigration as directly as Farage does, and it quickly became a focal point in the interview. The host attempted to undermine his claims, arguing that his statistics on immigration's economic and social impact were overstated. Farage, calling the inheritance tax a racket, visibly unsettled the host, who tried to paint him as conspiratorial. However, Farage stood his ground, backing his claims and endorsement from credible economists, including Paul Tucker, a former deputy governor of the Bank of England. His argument was both simple and compelling. Systemic inefficiencies and financial mismanagement were costing the country billions. Reform, he asserted, was not just necessary, it was urgent.
And inflammatory.
I don't think anything I've said is inflammatory. What I've said is that for 50 years, we had net migration into Britain of 30 or 40,000 a year. That from the late 1940s right up until.
Farage framed immigration as more than just a political issue. Few politicians address the topic of immigration with the same boldness and directness that Nigel Farage does in interviews. He argues that unchecked immigration is putting an unsustainable strain on public services, from healthcare to housing, completely impacting the economy negatively. Farage didn't stop at pointing out problems. He offered solutions too. He proposed tightening immigration controls and prioritising skilled workers, framing this as a way to protect the economy and national security. The host, eager to challenge Farage's position, questioned the accuracy of his statistics, that his claims regarding immigration's impact on the economy and social services might have been exaggerated. Farage, however, remained unshaken. He doubled down on his stance, providing government data to support his position and reinforce his argument with unwavering confidence.
A new home every 2 minutes in this country just to deal with net migration. I've argued that our infrastructure is crumbling. I've argued that our health service can't cope.
I do want to kind of clear up figures. How
Yeah.
did you get every 2 minutes a new home is created for a migrant?
A migrant a minute comes to Britain. A migrant a minute comes to Britain. In fact, it's actually...
While the hosts had a more sinister intention in mind, with questions meant to corner, confuse or tamper his credibility, Farage gave concise, intelligent answers to these questions. His replies were not vague or scripted like most politicians in the UK. It was like watching a craftsman work. Every answer came with facts that his critics couldn't argue with or deny. By the end of the interview, every attempt to make him foolish completely failed, and the hosts were helpless. The aftermath of the interview created an uproar on social media, and public discourse was filled with praise for Farage and his Reform Party.
Making £800,000 per year out of human trafficking, and so long as there's no feasible way of them being returned to any country, Sir Keir Starmer has said that he will scrap Rwanda on day one. Kevin Saunders, this will only continue.
It will, yes, it will continue. It really will continue. And I think it's very, very important that you people in the media actually tell the people, the electorate, that at the moment we cannot remove people to their countries of origin, because to remove somebody, you have to have a document. Now, Sir Keir was saying that he was going to speed up all the applications and remove people that had no right to be in the UK. Well, I'm very sorry, he can't.
His calm, confident and intelligent replies resonated with many Britons who are not used to seeing politicians in the modern era speak from their hearts. Do you think Farage will be a good Prime Minister for the UK? Let us know what you think in the comments section. If you found this breakdown insightful, leave a like and subscribe to the channel to watch more videos.